Hey, we're super excited about our guest on the show today. We've known her for a very long time, and she burst on the scene in 1996 with her debut album, Did I Shave My Legs for This?
And you can't talk to her and not smile. She's just fun.
Yeah, just a genuinely great young lady and just been making country music for a long time. And of course, the iconic Strawberry Wine is how so many of you know her. But there's more to Deana Carter than just that one song, and we're going to dive into all of that in just a couple of seconds. She is our special guest coming up. We're so excited. It's always fun to catch up with friends who we've known for a long, long time, and we haven't had a chance to talk to you in, I don't know, a year or two maybe. I can't remember. But Deana, it's so good to see you.
Thank you. It's good to see y'all. You look
It
great.
seems like, oh, you look great.
Get out of here.
We're just old guys. But I'll tell you this. It seems like yesterday we were at the after party at the ACM Awards in Vegas, sitting around Randy Owen and just thinking like, man, I don't know if it gets cooler than this. I think was the conversation we were having.
Yep,
And,
for sure.
and now here we are still kicking.
Aren't the awards fun? They're so fun because you get to see everybody, and even though it's in passing, you're all in the same place,
Well, no, it's not fun for us because we never win.
Oh,
Well, even when we won, we still left the award ceremony like at the first commercial break. We went to the bar. No kidding.
oh, I vote
So-
for you. For sure.
Aw.
Always. Y'all are my faves. Are you kidding?
Okay, lies make baby Jesus cry.
So let's start with a quick rundown memory lane. And when you first came out, and we were still in San Diego at this time, and Strawberry Wine hit, and of course that's
Iconic song.
just an iconic song, and people love it so much. How long did it take though? Because everybody thinks about the overnight success that doesn't exist. How long were you working at it? How long were you doing all your stuff before that happened for you?
Oh, we had a whole European record that came out before that. I was overseas touring with a European band, a British band, and a guy named Jimmy Nail. The first Shave record, to answer your question, was different than the one that came out here in the States,
Okay.
which a lot of people don't know that. So it was definitely a good 5-year process just to get to the release of the US version. So, and then you guys will remember it took like 16 weeks for it to chart, I think. And then it went up the chart. So, like, prehistoric dinosaur charting
Yeah.
Yeah, it's way different.
ratio, right? The rate was so slow. It was a real sleeper on the record. But then once it took off and people connected, it was like Katie bar the door. So, yeah, it
Did
was
you-
a long ramp.
Did you and your team know all along, like once it clicks, it's going to click, or was it a.
And I don't. I mean, that was the song I fought the hardest to have on the record. I took in because they wanted me to record outside music. Like I said, we had that European record. I'd written everything on the record. But
Yeah.
to bring the community in, and Nashville's such a community-based place, at least it definitely used to be inclusive like that for publishers and, ASCAP, BMI, like you wanted a good spread of everything on the record to help promote at award shows and things like that. So I brought in Strawberry and We Danced Anyway. Those were brought in together because I loved them. Strawberry was my song. Strawberry Wine was like
Yeah.
my life, like everybody else.
Sure.
And We Danced Anyway sounded so different for the radio at the time. It had that cool groove.
Yeah.
And we had How Do I Get There, which was the first song ever on country radio to have a funky drum loop in it, like a groove to it.
I don't think I knew that.
Yep. And
That's
so that
cool.
really changed the trajectory of singles at country radio, was that funky element. So I don't think we knew. I'll give you the longest answers ever.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Nobody knew. I can come back to it though. Nobody really knew the impact that it was going to have. And what's the most shocking is that the impact that it has still had. Like, we are growing fans, but show by show by show. We have 5-year-olds, 3-year-olds, that their grandparents were first married or something when the record came out. and their parents were in middle school, and now it's like we just have this it's a recurring new fan base that keeps coming. And I mean, I think we just looked at numbers. It's like 1 million, almost 2 million streams just this year alone on Spotify for Strawberry Wine and a couple of other songs on that first record. So it's really in the ratio of statistics. It's as relevant, as it was when we didn't have Spotify and all those statistics. So pretty incredible.
That is incredible.
And does that help, you think, with like your career today, the streaming and the more avenues to get your music out there? Because radio was so, if you're not in this club, then you don't get on. Has that helped really?
I think it's helped expose, especially with YouTube and TikTok and things like how you can have fun. Your personality can come through more. People, your fan base. I'm not great at it, to be honest. I try to. I go in waves. I get like so overwhelmed with having to do it that I'll go through phases of not doing it. But I think that the fan base can connect to you so much more and get to know your personality a lot better. So for that reason, yes. Does it help the wallet and your longevity financially and things like that? It's sort of diluted that part of it, which is ironic to me because a single in the 90s, if you were top 5, you were making a great living, right? Yeah. The writers were, the artists were, the labels were, like everybody was kind of sharing in that. And a top 5 now might be on the chart one week and like disappears the next week. And you're seeing like hundreds of pennies on the dollar to try to support the craft itself. So that's a little bit tough to swallow, but at the same time, you've got more exposure. So hopefully your longevity will be relevant,
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, we've talked to Tracy Bird, Sarah Evans, Neil McCoy. We're hitting a lot of our '90s friends, and you all. I mean, you say a lot of the same things slightly differently, but one thing I think that's the same across the board is that streaming has just been a murder on the wallet because nobody pays anything, and it's a real shame because this great art is there, artists, songwriters, you name it, and they're just not being fairly compensated for their talent.
Absolutely. I think, but that's what's cool about live touring, being able to I'm trying to stay healthy. We're joking about my workout. I come running in here like, dude, workout's done, because I want to be as healthy as possible to be on the road as long as possible, because that really keeps you fan connected, promoter connected, venues and, regionally connected to your fan base so that you can supplement your income that way. That's really how we make our living nowadays, is in the touring of it. And it's such a blessing,
Yeah, well, I was just saying, I mean, it's not like you're sitting around at home. You said you did 100 dates last year?
Yeah. Yep.
On track for that this year as well? Or?
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you do more? Do you choose to keep it around there? Do you like some people are like Tracy Bird talked about, he said, I've decided now I don't want to be out there all the time. So I kind of pick and choose the shows I want to do.
Yeah. Well, you think 100 gigs, that's 2 days on each side for travel. It's 300 days.
God, that's true.
That leaves me like 2 months at home.
Which would be perfect for some couples.
Yeah, exactly. So, and luckily my husband now, my newest husband,
the latest.
Yes. No, the best one of all, like the final husband, he travels with me and plays guitar with me and stuff. So that's a super positive for us. We want to choke. We've only wanted to choke each other like 2 or 3 times in the last couple of years, but it is helpful to be able to stay out, and do this and supplement the airplay. So I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to be in recurrent radio. Like, I will say that is such a gift to have a song that is meaningful enough to be considered to stay in recurrent radio. And that's mainstream recurrent.
I was going to mention that to you, that there's probably, a handful of songs that have been around that long that I kind of, like Rachel, my wife, her, she was co-writer on Good Directions. And like Good Directions, Strawberry Wine, there's just like a few of those that still are in that loop of, and then there's songs you hear and you go, oh yeah, that was at the same time. That was a number one, and you never hear it anywhere.
Right. And it's fun because a few of opening bands and things, if they're local and they do 90s covers, they'll do like Jody Messina, Heads Carolina. Look, that song, everybody's screaming it at the top of their lungs. It's one of those. So it's same with Strawberry Wine and our whole set, because we've got a lot of that first record in the set and people are singing from tip to tail, like through the whole show. And you just see people so happy and excited about music. It feels like no time has passed. Seriously, it's fun to see what other artists, bring the house down, like what other songs are meaningful to people. And it's 90s is still hanging in there. It's really special.
Big time. And yeah, I think about like for you and how long you've been doing this and the great songs you put out there and how that feels. And then you think about a band like the Stones who are still out there touring and have been since the 60s. Like how many memories have they made for people? It's crazy. I can't even imagine.
Yes.
I was thinking about... Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. You go.
You're the star. You go.
Well, I was going to say, Did I Shave My Legs for This is like my Hotel California, right? That's my Hotel California record that people want to hear. I've had 9 albums out and they want the first one. That's the one that's meaningful to them. And I know how they feel. We went to, when I was living in LA, I got to go to a lot of shows, and we saw, I've seen a few classic bands that I loved and they would not play their biggest hits. And you just like want to choke the life out of it. You're like, what? That's my soundtrack of my life,
Yeah.
So you have to play those songs. You owe it to your fan base. You owe it to yourself to never let go of those foundational hits.
Absolutely.
Ever.
100%.
It's like Bryan Adams rolled through town, and I think 7 of his 20 song set was from Reckless. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, well, as it should be. There's a movie called Chef with Jon Favreau. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Dustin Hoffman is this restaurant owner, and they're talking about cooking the menu. And Favreau's like, I want to try some new stuff. And Dustin Hoffman's like, if you went to see the Stones and they didn't play Satisfaction, you'd be pissed. You'd be furious. He goes, that's true. He said, you got to play the hits. And it's true. So I think as an artist, it must be challenging. It's like, am I sure that I want to play this song every night for the rest of my life? Because you have to be willing to do that because that's the song they want to hear.
Now, going back to the Stones, they have a unique situation where they're only going to play 25 songs. They've got about 8 million hits.
Yeah.
So at some point, you kind of got to, well, which ones are we feeling?
Those medleys drop in that everybody's doing now. So
I'm curious about, it's a great point. I wonder if they rotate their set list. They might.
I happen to know this. They actually have someone on staff that has a catalog of every city they've played in and the set list all the way back. And they have a basic outline of a set list, but like if they come through Nashville and they go, oh, we opened up last year with Sympathy for the Devil. Well, we got to do this. And they change it and they make sure they don't open or close with the same thing.
That's crazy.
I follow Mick Jagger on Instagram and he is hilarious. I mean, he is just full of life and always working out and,
I know.
Working it.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine being 80 and getting around the way he does and running around and dancing?
80, period.
And those guys.
Can you imagine being 80 with a newborn? I mean, come on. No,
I can't imagine being 80. But just the fact that if you think about it, those guys, since really the 70s, have never went into a city where a stadium of people haven't spent their money, and they roll into town knowing 60 to 80,000 people have spent money, a good amount of money, to come see us next week or tomorrow night or whatever. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. And all the way up to just losing Charlie Watts, right? We just lost him last year, I think. Yeah. Can you imagine them on stage without him? That would have to be
weird.
I know they'll get a great, the replacement. Obviously is worthy, but still, how do you fill those shoes and then having those shows? And it's going to be different for them too.
Well, just sharing that much time. I mean, I look at a band like U2.
Yeah.
Same lineup has never changed the entire time from the time they started. So eventually, if one of them does quit or die or whatever, it's like, do you carry on or do you pull a Led Zeppelin and say, well, he's not here anymore? So when they lost their drummer, they just stopped being Led Zeppelin. They said, we can't be Led Zeppelin anymore. It's crazy.
Well, look at Journey, right? One of my favorite bands. Yeah. I'm a huge Journey fan.
Steve Perry's so brilliant.
Replacement. Oh my god!
You know about his contract, right? with Journey?
Don't.
He
No.
signed off. He's part owner of Journey. So when they got the replacement singer, he's made money off every one of their tours, like 6 to 12 million per tour.
Wow.
So why would he ever come back and go like, I'm going to be compared to my old self? Everybody's going to say, well, he's not as good as he used to be or whatever.
Yeah.
Let this guy go out and do
Right.
all the work and I'll just make some money.
Pretty brilliant.
Yeah. And have you seen them live? They're amazing. I mean, they're amazing.
I saw the last tour
You
that
know.
Steve Perry did with them, the Raised on Radio tour back in '86,
Yeah.
and then once he left the band,
Yeah.
and never
I know.
wasn't.
I even saw a recent because Hart, they're friends of mine.
Oh, nice Hart
Ann and
drop.
Nancy, and when yes, when they were on tour with Journey, which was an amazing show, they obviously didn't have Steve Perry with them, but it was still phenomenal how they got somebody to fill in that sounded.
Well, it's great. I mean,
you know,
Arnell's incredible. I mean, he's got a great voice. I'm not
Yeah.
slighting him in any
Yeah.
way. It just for me, it was tough.
I
Once
know.
Steve Perry was gone, I was like, this doesn't feel like Journey.
I know.
And I'm not zipping past Hart. Just you mentioning that word. There's 2 videos from the 80s. Bangles Walk Like an Egyptian, where she looks to the side,
Yes,
and Nancy
Yeah.
Wilson with the leg kick.
these dreams.
These dreams.
Yes.
As soon as I hear that, that's the first thing that pops in my head anytime I hear the word hard is, oh, yeah, that was a good summer.
Well, what's funny,
She still does that.
but it's funny though. You mentioned you immediately bring up the first thing you think of is one of the things she hates the most because she
I
talked
know.
about how she hated that video.
But as a 16-year-old boy, I loved it.
Totally get it.
Oh, my brother's still in love with Nancy. She's so gorgeous. And look, they still bring it.
Oh.
I mean, she does her split kicks still. And Anne is just like off the chart. Her
Her vocals are
So
incredible. Yeah.
they don't get enough credit. They need more push out in the front of what we're doing now because they're so good.
They are.
Well, even when they
good.
played on the
Yeah.
Kennedy Center Honors, I think it was for Led Zeppelin, and they
Oh, yeah.
they sang the
Yes.
Zeppelin stuff, and Robert Plant was on his feet, just like they were just like, oh my god, because it sounded so
I know.
good.
Yes, amazing.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about what else is going on. This has been. I love that.
We're all over the place.
That's
but
what we do. We love being all over the place. So we're talking about touring and everything, but what else? What else is going on? You mentioned you got a golf tournament with Daly coming up.
I do. I'll be in Nashville on Monday for a tournament with John Daly. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I played golf with him before. Last time was him, and it was at Tracy Lawrence's tournament, and he and Kid Rock and I were hanging out. They're a wild bunch, but I was holding my own.
Yeah, I'm not
And
surprised.
we had a good time. Yeah,
don't fall
we had
for
a
the
good time.
tee trick, the tee off trick with John Daly. I was at
Lord.
Losers one night. We're friends with Irv Woolsey, and we're out there, and Daly
Yes.
rolls in. And there's a video of it on YouTube, but one of the co-owners, Steve Ford, had a few.
What?
And they put a tee in his mouth and laid him down, and John Daly teed off a ball down the street. But I mean, if he'd missed by half an inch, you talk about a shattered jaw, knocking every tooth out of your head.
Oh,
And
who would do that?
Steve Ford and John Daly.
No, my gosh. I'm like, no.
So don't fall for
So
that.
I just pulled it up. It's the John Daly Classic. It's the 32nd year that they've done it.
Awesome.
So it benefits Hearts of the Lion. So very sweet. And he'll text me random and just see what's happening sometimes. I'm like, oh, there's John. What's happening,
That's
John?
kind of surreal.
So it'll be fun. Yes.
You know, we've talked a lot about back in the day and everything. I wanted to ask you real quick about today's world for female singers. And it's been tough to get them on the charts. And then even then, sometimes, I mean, this is just our opinion. Sometimes we've said the songs don't feel like they're 100%. Do you think the boys club
Right.
thing still is still out there? Because we know back in the day, the boys club was definitely a thing.
Oh, for sure. There was a shift, for sure when it was duos, bands, girls, guys. It was just kind of like a free for all. There was no categorization, I guess. You didn't like slice it up like they did after the 90s. It seems like that started around 2004, 5, 6, somewhere early 2000s. But, people like Lainey Wilson, who I adore, I've written with her. She's from where my parents are from. Like, we have a kind of an interesting connection. She's killing it. She's doing songs that are authentic.
Yeah, for
And I
sure.
feel like that has really helped because, granted, there was a little bit of a brick wall there for women. But I feel like if you just keep singing the truth, right, the change is going to happen. I mean, I always said, like in the 90s and even now, girls keep your lipstick ready because, like, any day it's just going to shift back over. It's like a seasonal eclipse that happens. It's what happens in life, it's what happens in the industry. We go from rock to folk, well, disco. We had this, that. Like, look at all the genres of music that are popular at different times,
right.
right? And so I never got discouraged by that because I feel like I was lucky to be in recurrent radio. I was lucky to kind of thread that a little bit, just being on the front end of it. I do think the girls have suffered some, but you just got to sing the truth, right? Make the best records, keep doing shows, do live things. Thank God they have social media and ways to connect. And it's turning around. I mean, you can really feel it with the presence of women. It's fun to see Tanya come back around, right? Brandy Carlisle, they did a great record, did great work together, and so you see the classic things that were foundational come back and be relevant again. I feel like that's really been helpful.
And I think some strong women too. I mean, there's a lot of strong women in music right now, and that's good. Vocal women who are taking a stand about something, whatever that might be. And I think those are all good things to bring attention to the format. So,
yeah, for sure.
As long as it's okay by the guys. Oh no, is that wrong?
That's not how
that works. Oh, okay.
It doesn't go that way.
Well, if you complain about it, it's like a nagging wife, right? If you're naggy, it doesn't make you want to embrace your wife. Like, you're going to want to run from that. So as a woman, and I'm probably going to get lambasted for saying this, but you can't be naggy. Like, you've got to be able to, with grace and poise and strength, like, maneuver your life and all the steps that you take. You can't sit and complain and bitch and moan and be naggy. That doesn't.
I'm going to give you a list of artists. I'm going to give you a list of artists that do that right now, male and female.
I was going to say there's plenty of dudes who do that too. But I mean, but it's so unfair because we talk about, and it's not a joke, but it's the thing that gets said all the time. If a man stands up for himself and he's forward,
he's strong, determined.
But if a woman does it, she's a bitch, and it's like that's not fair and it's not right. I mean, I know plenty of dudes who are bitches,
right?
Plenty.
Yes.
Right. So. Yes, I agree with that. It's not fair, but knowing that, you have to even be more ready to, like, take it on when it comes around. And look, there's one guy that I heard on an interview complaining about the 90s. I'm sick of hearing about the 90s. I'm like, can they not die and go away, or whatever he said. And I was like, wow, that I would never say that about the 80s or the 70s or any kind of ramp that helped my butt get where it is.
You have to understand too, and I won't say names to humiliate them, but a very, very big duo right now, country and pop. One of them had the number one song in the country, and I was with him at Losers. I seem to talk about Losers a lot on this episode. And with us was another writer of the number one song the week before. So 2 number one songwriters in country music, and I had a Jerry Reed shirt on. And people kept coming up going, cool shirt. And they go, both, who's Jerry Reed?
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, you guys are in country music. And they're like, oh, was he in movies or something? And I'm like, oh.
Well, yes, later on.
Well, it's frustrating when you see people who don't have the love for it and who don't study it or whatever. But I mean, at the end of the day, I get that because there's a lot of that kind of stuff that, I mean, I'm in this business and some of it I missed. And I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, I know a lot. But I certainly know who Jerry Reed is.
Well, same. Oh, I'm from Nashville, and I'm more of a classic rock fan than, like, I don't know a lot about classic country music, to be honest with you, because my focus was elsewhere in the 80s, right? In the 70s and 80s. But I appreciate the history and the foundation and all that stuff. So I would never be dissing the people that, any era that helps set up the next era.
If they're carving out a path of success for you, why would you go back and say negative things about them?
Exactly. Well, my son Hayes, he's in college now. He's a freshman at Western Kentucky, and I always tell this joke on stage about Bob Dylan, because I toured with Bob Dylan, and he's like, "Who's Bob Dylan?" So I'm thinking, Hazy man, Hazy, what? Like, do they not teach you about anything in college?
We've made that joke so many times. Our last producer is
But-
my son's age. It's like 26. And he would say, I was like, what did you learn in college?
Yeah.
It wasn't anything important.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
So,
I love that.
except at Tennessee. At Tennessee, they taught us everything important. I'll just
Quick
leave
plug
it
there. And
yeah. And talk about Knoxville. You were a bartender there, correct?
Yes, at Toddy's.
Thank you so much for taking some time. Is there anything, do you want to anything
Thank
new on the
y'all.
horizon you want to talk about or plug real quick before we say goodbye? Should they come check out the website? Should they check out your social media, all the usual goodies?
Yeah, just check out Deana.com. That's the website. One N. Always have to say it's Deana, not Deanna. It's one N. It's like Dean Martin. I was named after
Oh,
him.
I didn't know that.
awesome.
Yes. My dad had a song called It Just Happened That Way that Dean Martin recorded around the time I was born. And you can find it on iTunes, but that's why my name is spelled that way.
Interesting.
Love it.
And so Deana.com, Deana Tunes is Instagram, Deana Sings is Twitter. I didn't realize I needed to do the same handle for everything. So back in
Sure,
the day.
yeah. Well,
And that's it. Just check out our website for touring. Come see us. And I'm writing and hopefully new music at some point when I'm not on the road.
excellent. All right. Well, all that
So-
information will be in the description, so you can go down there and click those links and check it out. And definitely, if you're not as familiar as you
Yes.
should be with Deana's music, get there because it's so good.
Yes, we love you.
Yeah.
Thank
Appreciate
you. I love you guys so much. Thank you.
Talk to you soon.